Can you review Timeless?
Timeless. 7 Hertz Timeless review.
Timeless.
When?
Timeless.
7 Hertz Timeless.
I need to know more after that initial.
Listen to us. We want Timeless.
Fine. I did one decent reaction of an IEM, and all of you go ape shit. Is it really that where I am impressed with an IEM? Actually, don't answer that. No, it's fine. It's fine. I do content for you guys because I love you guys. But you know, really, every single video, every single comment that I've made has been absolutely inundated, flooded with comments just asking me to review the Timeless. That's it. I get it. I get it. You know, it's like, oh, funny audiophile man makes funny face after listening to an IEM. Is it actually good? All right. I'm here to answer the question. Of course, it's good. Of course, it's good. Why else would I make that face? Why else would I make that reaction? But I know you guys want more. You guys want more information. Fine. Here's the review, but I'm going to do it slightly differently this time. I'm going to split it up into a few chapters, and I'm going to start out with Chapter 1. I try not to be a shill. So here it is. The Timeless, a planar IEM that costs $220 retail by the brand 7 Hertz. I think that's all the relevant information that you need to know at this point. But before we even go into anything, let me just try and convince you, the viewer, that you should not buy the Timeless. Mostly because I just feel guilty if I just sing nothing but praises. I need to criticize. It's in my blood to criticize. Numero uno of what would be the absolute deal breaker for the Timeless is the fit. It is a fairly weirdly shaped IEM. It's kind of like a circular coin-ish kind of configuration. Even for my own ears, I didn't feel like it was the most secure fit. And that's because the faceplate was kind of separate from the rest of the shell, and the nozzle wasn't actually that long because I like my IEMs shoved deep inside me. I'm not apologizing. The thing is, you kind of have to grapple with the fact that with these kinds of drivers, there naturally is going to be slightly more weird shell designs, and the 7 Hertz Timeless is no exception. So when I say that it is the biggest deal breaker, it is genuinely going to be the first thing that you notice. The fit is not going to be like any other IEM that you've ever tried. It's not the most uncomfortable thing that I've tried, but you know, IEMs live and die by comfort. So deal breaker number 2 is slightly more subjective. It has to do with its sound signature. The first thing that you'll notice on Timeless that it is very, very bassy, kind of. The Timeless is in a weird position. It's not a bass hits IEM, or at least I don't think it is. Is it? But one thing is for certain, is that the bass is emphasized. So if you're someone who doesn't like bass, or you're looking for a much more neutral sounding kind of IEM, or something that's just bright tilted, this is not for you. The Timeless is not a one-size-fits-all solution in terms of signature. But you could say the same thing for any other IEM, so really this just applies to everything else as well. There is quite a bit of bass though. The first time I heard it, the bass was... I needed a little bit of time to adjust to, but not too much, not too much. It's not like it's a massively bass boosted kind of IEM like the Raycon earbuds, but it was still bass boosted. So again, if you're someone who doesn't like bass, skip the Timeless. The third deal breaker is more relevant to more experienced audiophiles. It has to do with the presentation of the sound. Some of you may get it when I say this. The Timeless has a somewhat soft kind of presentation. And again, it's hard to explain to newbies for the first time. It's going to take like a long time explaining on like texturing and timbre and all that. But yeah, the Timeless is soft on the presentation. It's not going to be hard and edgy like, let's say, the JVC FDX1 or, you know, other more BA sets. This has, again, a much more distinctly soft edge to its nose. Like, I feel like I'm sounding like an audiophile, but you know, I have to stay true to my roots. I am an audiophile. All of these terms describes exactly what I'm hearing. It is a slightly soft presentation. Take that how you will. Deal breaker number 4 is not necessarily a deal breaker, but I'm going to say it anyways. The imaging, the staging is average. It's not bad. For context, when it comes to IEMs, 80% of IEMs to me just kind of fall in that limbo of average. So it's the same thing for the 7Hz timeless. It sounds like an IEM. I don't think that it naturally projects the sound that much outwards. There's still that in your head effect. It's not terrible. Again, 80% average means that there's going to be 10% that is absolutely terrible and 10% that is godlike and amazing. The timeless is neither of those. It's not terrible. It's not amazing. So it's not even a deal breaker. I wouldn't consider it a deal breaker, but if you're someone who really wants soundstage and imaging in your IEMs, which you shouldn't because it's a fucking IEM, then yeah, timeless, don't get it. And the last deal breaker is a bit hard to quantify because it has to do with our favorite QC issues. Now, I, a reviewer, am only going to test realistically one set of each product. You shouldn't expect anyone to test more than one set. After all, you just buy one set, right? You don't buy multiples of the same product, right? There are definitely people out there who do that, but you know. So there are reports out there that do say that, oh, you know, some timeless units that get shipped out have channel imbalance issues. Some of them don't sound like what other people are describing it as, which are both are dubious because every single product out there are probably a few instances of channel imbalance going on. The production process for all of these items are not going to be 100% perfect. So some of these broken / malfunctioning units will eventually end up in the hands of the consumer. That's not exclusive to a single model or even a single brand. Everyone has this issue at some point in time. So I give the QC issues warning for this model specifically with a very heavy caveat that, again, I have not tested anything. The reports don't seem to be that bad, but at the same time, you know, I just want to say something for this section. Don't buy it if you're concerned with QC issues. But if you really follow that philosophy, then don't buy any IEMs. Yeah, that's kind of like all that I can think of to why you shouldn't buy timeless. Don't buy it if you think that it wouldn't fit you, that you don't think you'll jive with its sound signature, that you don't like its presentation, or whether you don't like the fact that you're going to get typical IEM staging and imaging, or you're just worried about QC issues, the last of which really applies to every single IEM. So I guess now it's really time for me to start shilling the timeless, huh? Chapter 2. Planar IEMs. So, no, not yet. We're gonna do a little bit of foreplay before we get deep into the shilling. Let's talk about planar IEMs. If you don't know what a planar driver is, the most simple explanation that I can give is that you kind of etch the coil onto a sheet, the diaphragm, the plane, and you line up magnets, whether or not on one side or both sides, and that's how you move the diaphragm, using magnets and the coil on the diaphragm. Is that a simple answer? I don't know. So that's why they call it a planar, because the diaphragm is literally at a plane. For the longest time, planar drivers haven't been very popular in IEMs. I think one of the first planar IEMs that really came out was one of the Odysseys, of course. The Odyssey iSign series, which just took a huge, just absolutely massive driver and just thought to themselves, how do we make this into an IEM? So what they did was pretty simple. They just took the thing and just shove it like that, and what you get is like one TIE fighter looking-esque thing just jutting out of your ear, and just a waveguide that goes into your ear and out into an ear tip. At that point, it just felt a bit like a stopgap solution, you know? It's kind of just an IEM in name only, but it's definitely not a regular IEMF, that's for sure. And in terms of the rest of the market, Odysseys weren't the first to do this kind of driver setup. There was, of course, their own LCD I series, and then you have the Go Planar GL20, the Unique Melody MP1, the TFZ Balance 7 as well. And here's the big problem with all of these like large planar driver IEMs. You couldn't tune them for shit. I don't know, it's because the waveguides require a complexity that is way beyond today's modern technology, but the end result is all the same. All of these large planar diaphragm, again, IEMs, have this weird 1K honk with a complete deficiency in the upper mids. So look, I ranked basically all these like planar IEMs at D tier and under tonality. It's really not tuned very well. But on the flip side, these are very, very technically excellent. Wide soundstage, probably the widest that you would ever hear in an IEM by virtue again because of the large diaphragm and the fact that they are all open backs. Kind of cheating, but the end result is the same. And whether or not it being due to the displacement of the air or the low distortion or whatever, all of these planar driver IEMs, large planar driver IEMs, are some of the most resolving IEMs in the market today. But trade-offs are just too severe. So if you can't work with all of these large planar diaphragms, what do you do next? Well, you just shrink them down. Simple, isn't it? Yeah, no. So just make sure that the driver size and your output tube is at a much more similar size, so all of these weird effects from the previous designs aren't there anymore. Sounds like a decent fix. The problem is that it didn't really fix much, if anything. One of the first IEMs to use this microplanar concept was the RHA-CL2. The RHA-CL2 had a massive problem, two massive problems actually. It was not as technically proficient as the large diaphragm size planar IEMs that preceded it, and it wasn't tuned well. So effectively the CL2 was again dead in the water. There's really no reason for you to get CL2 over a traditional like DDIEM or even just the large planar diaphragms, because if you're going to use EQ anyways, you might as well get something that was more technically proficient. Then came the Tin Hi-Fi P1, and it had the direct opposite problem of the large planar diaphragms. It was tuned well. It was tuned surprisingly well, but it was just not resolving at all. I don't know what happened. The first time I heard it, my first impression was that it was blunted. It was muffled. There's no detail. It was definitely nowhere close to all of these like large planar diaphragm IEMs that I've tried before. What's going on? Again, I didn't know, but I knew what I heard. The P1 sucked. And then later on, you had things like the Gold Planar GL12, as well as the Deton Ray Tender 1, both of which were also not great. It feels like the microplanar driver was also kind of dead in the water at this point. So what was the compromise? Yeah, the mid-size. Just do a middle ground, right? One of the first mid-size planar IEMs that came out was the AAW Nightingale. My country, Singapore. It was not great. Still sucked. Then of course Tin Hi-Fi came up with the update to their P1, which was the P2. It was also not great, but it was decidedly an improvement over the P1. Just not something that I would recommend to people. Then of course you have things like the PMV-PP, the Toner King BL1, and the Sinfonio P10. If all these names are alien to you, don't worry, I feel the same. All of which had lukewarm response, none of which really took off, because for the same reason, it was just all mediocre. There's nothing really special about them apart from the fact that they were planar IEMs, which in itself didn't matter. Another way that a lot of these manufacturers tried to skirt around the whole like, oh, it's really hard to tune planars, was to put it in a hybrid configuration, to mesh it with oftentimes a dynamic driver or even an additional BA driver on top of that. So you have things like the Harmonic Dyne PD1 or Bravo's own infamous Cupid, as well as the ERIB series. Let's not forget, of course, the Tri-i3 and now the i3 Pro. But so I have rambled on and on and on about this. And what is my eventual point? Planar IEMs suck. Either that they're bottlenecked by tuning, or they compromise just so much on the technical performance just to get a not terrible tuning. There's virtually no middle ground, or at least there is no middle ground where the planars are both technically proficient and well tuned. Yeah, so here we have chapter 3. I shield the timeless. So after all of that rambling, we finally get to talk about the subject of this video itself, the 7Hz timeless. For all of you too impatient to even wait for my rankings, let me just give it to you straight. A tier tone, A tier technicalities, 3, the full 3 stars. All right, happy? Well, I'm sure some of you don't know how to decipher exactly what that means. So let me explain what the hell is going on? I am not exaggerating when I say that the 7 Hz timeless is currently the world's best planar IEMs, at least under IEF metrics. That is to say, both in tuning and in technical performance, and not compromising on each one. There are definitely planar IEMs that beat the timeless on technical proficiency. You're not going to out-resolve, let's say, an iSign or LCD-I series, or even the Euclid, which is Odyssey's own close-back planar IEM. But the thing is, it's so well tuned that it just, again, as an all-rounder, as a complete package, as an IEM, there's no competition. Why would you consider anything else? And as I've mentioned at the start of this video, you're gonna beat up all of these like $1,000 IEMs, $1,000 planar IEMs. And how much does this cost? $200. I ask again, 7 Hz. Was this an accident? How? Why? What? All right, Timmy, put up the graph. It's very easy, the graph analysis. It pretty much tracks my neutral target curve. Of course, with a slight base boost. It's not even slight, it's actually a very substantial base boost. But at the end of the day, what you can say is that the 7 Hz timeless is a fairly tonally balanced IEM. And for a planar IEM, again, we've gone through the entire history of planar IEMs, and we looked at all of these planar IEMs, all of which are tuned either horribly or with just poor technical performance. This is different. This is a complete step up from everything else that I've heard in the planar landscape. This is so far above the competition to the point where I just say, you know what? All other planar IEMs are now irrelevant. So well-tuned, technically proficient. Again, A-tier tonality, A-tier technical performance. This thing is an A-tier IEM for $200. Is it no surprise that I'm going to give it the full 3 value rating system? This thing plays with $1,000 sets. And I'm not just saying this in a vacuum. Again, refer to my ranking list. Look at everything else that's in A tier. You're of course going to get some outliers, like let's say the FDX1, which is an A-, the Blessing 2, which is $320 and is an A+. But the thing is, again, cheap, $200. How? Let's just compare it with the two that I've just mentioned, the FDX1 and the Blessing 2. The FDX1 is, in contrast to the timeless's, again, soft presentation, the FDX1 is a lot edgier. It has that metallic timbre going on for it, which is why I gave it an A- in technical performance, because while it was insanely resolving, the metallic timbre just didn't do much for me. It made everything clear, yes, it felt like everything had a sharpening filter on top, but it just wasn't the most natural sounding for a lot of sustained instruments. And the opposite is true for the timeless. Yes, the soft presentation makes it such that all these percussive hits and things that require plucking to be a little bit not that satisfying. But when it comes to just the general timbre of the instruments, just beats the FDX1. It is definitely a much more natural listen compared to the FDX1. And let's not even start on BA sets, which is a perfect segue to the Blessing 2, which is kind of, notorious for its BA timbre. Yes, the Blessing 2 is going to out-resolve the timeless. You can't really skirt around that. The Blessing 2 is the king of the $300 price range for a reason, but BA timbre. And the timeless doesn't have any of that. It is, comparatively speaking, a much more natural listen. And it's $100 cheaper. What else is better? I don't even know. I guess there's the C Audio Yume, but come on, that thing just doesn't have any resolution. The timeless shits on it, technically speaking. I'll still pick the Yume for a better tuned set, but the timeless is just so much better as an all-rounder. Maybe the new release from Moondrop, which is the Moondrop Kato, would be a good competitor to the timeless, but I haven't really listened to that set for too long. I've been mostly focused around the timeless, all this for the last 2 weeks. So again, wait for the Moondrop Kato review. If I think that it competes well with the timeless, I'll let you guys know as well. But for now, It's a timeless. Come on. I do want to reiterate again. This is not a perfect purchase. The timeless will not work for everyone. So again, rewind back to the first chapter where I again talk about why you shouldn't buy a timeless, because those are very valid reasons. But sound wise, and if you jive with this sound signature, the timeless is timeless. I will say it does feel good to finally be able to say some good things about a product. The last few weeks, it feels like I've been doing nothing but shitting on things. So finally, now that there's something really good, arguably revolutionary, good job 700s. Actually, now that I think about it, the best IEM for all budgets video is kind of outdated at this point, isn't it? But yeah, just mentally in your mind, replace the FDX one with this entire video. Yeah, there we go. So for the second video in a row, let's all end on a high note. So let me shout out all of my big money boys: Dennis, McMadface, Alexander, Jonathan, Iamon, Jerry Liu, Mike, GY Audio, ZF, HK57, Phil, and of course, Timmy. Thank you all. Let me remind all of y'all again that there's gonna be a giveaway for my 10,000 subscribers celebration. So go down to crinacle.com/10k to join in, because there's no reason for you not to join. Just go in, put your entry in, right? So this is my first review in a while, so I hope I'm not too rusty, alright? But yeah, see you next week. Don't die. Fuck off. 45 minutes of raw footage. 45.